Anna KALCZYSKA is our next guest. Hello.
Hello,
Should
good
I
to be
say
here.
Bonjour, ça va?
Bonjour,
Ça va
oui,
bien?
ça va très très bien, merci.
My French is not that good.
All right.
J'en ai oublié la plupart
Mhm.
parce que je n'ai pas vécu dans un pays francophone,
Oui,
mais je comprends presque tout, mais je parle pas aussi souvent.
d'accord. C'est la même chose. Moi, j'ai exactement la même remarque à faire, c'est-à-dire je parle français, je comprends tout. J'adore le français.
Ouais,
Le français,
c'est ça.
c'était ma première langue pendant les études de linguistique appliquée à Varsovie. Mais, ceci dit, malheureusement, je parle très très peu le français. Nous avons peu d'occasions de parler français en Pologne. Surtout, peu de
Mhm.
gens parlent. Par contre, je parle français parfois avec mes amis.
Mhm.
Mes amis à moi qui se sont avérés tout au long de ma vie.
Ouais.
Et justement, maintenant, aujourd'hui, de temps en temps, j'ai le plaisir de parler français. Mais sinon, c'est l'anglais.
Pour moi, for me, I have this blocage dans ma tête,
Mhm.
blockage in my head, barrier. And it's interesting because this is in my program, I'm breaking down the language barriers, and I have a barrier in a different language.
Sure.
And I think it's totally normal to have it. So I want people to know that I'm also having this issue, and it's
This
totally
is
fine.
great. This is really comforting, I must say. Because in English, as I told you, this is my second language.
Mhm.
And English is not that easy.
It's not that
It's
easy.
always a language that has been taught to me. And so I am making progress, obviously. I'm trying, I'm listening. Probably my kids and, the younger generation it has a different issue with this English language. I think they are absolutely and totally fluent, and
They're
they don't have
constantly
it.
immersed in this
Absolutely.
English world,
With,
right?
Probably we could have been immersed as well
Mm-hmm.
as youngsters, exposed to music, first of all, texts, literature or movies. Oh, yet it's not that easy. I think perhaps it was Poland closed at that time.
Yeah.
And the lack of ability to travel and things like that.
You use English on a daily basis now
Yes.
at your work, which we'll be getting into, but we share many more similarities. We have a lot of things in common, actually. Brussels is one of those things. We'll be getting into that later on. But I always start with describing a person, I guess, with one word, one expression. And I found one that fits you pretty well.
Go
It's
ahead.
passionate.
Oh, this is nice.
And I think it fits pretty well. I might be
Yes.
biased because I think we share similar passions, which we'll be getting into. But if I were to name these passions, it would be passion for searching for information, passing it on, and educating along the way. Would you agree
Absolutely.
with that?
I totally agree. And thank you very much for looking for this specific attribute or noun that could somehow describe me. I would totally agree. Yes, this is it.
I also usually restrain from giving out compliments at the beginning because I don't really see the need of doing that. I think I gave 3 compliments tops. And I want to give also one to you because you're a person I've been looking up to and admiring your work. So it's sort of a privilege to have you here. And I have to say it.
Damian, this is such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Now, I'm blushing. So
I just want to embrace this moment and cherish the fact that I'm sitting in front of you as a newbie, I could say, in journalism world. And you've been doing it. You've been doing it for over 20 years, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I think so.
So we can see quite a contrast. But in that way, experience-wise, right?
Yes. Yeah. Right.
So I'm admiring that, and I want to cherish the fact that I have this opportunity.
Damian, thank you so much. But let me tell you this. First
me.
of all, I am a learner as well. Believe me. I am in my process all the time. When I came to TVP World now, as my husband likes to say, world, TVP World. So he stresses, the pronunciation, which is important in this channel. But anyway, when I came, I thought it would be such a easy thing. I was easygoing, and I thought that I found finally my place. And there I discovered how much things are still to be done, and how much things I have to learn. And so I'm in the process.
It's a learning
and I
curve.
also looked at my colleagues, for instance, in the newsroom, and I thought, my God, we're alike. And then comes a reflection, okay, but they are 20 years younger. Come on, Anya, so this is not exactly the same situation. But yes, this journalistic experience is something that I have and nobody will take it from me. Yet with language skills, much remains to be done.
It's a learning curve.
Yes.
And we all learn, and it's a nice
Absolutely.
curve. Let's enjoy the ride and
Exactly.
see where it gets us. Let's get back to passions. Have you always had this inner drive for journalism?
Well, if you ask my mother, for instance, she would tell you that I was always looking at Krystyna Loska in the television, who is a figure, I would say, iconic figure of all-time journalist. And she was basically there, filling with herself the whole space. Whole crowd,
Yeah.
yes. And she was just grasping the attention of the audience. And that was it. And I think I was really, thrilled, or really she would get to me. And I wanted the same sort of attention from the people who would look at me and listen from me, what words that I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought that maybe I would like to have something more in common with the language that I am in the process of learning, acquiring, and that I should make use of this. So at some point I wanted to be a stewardess or a flight
really?
attendant. Yes,
Great.
as a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
and didn't know at that time what else could I do. But then television obviously came to my attention. And when I was looking for, a direction to go, to choosing my path with higher education, I figured out interpreting. And I thought, this is it. I mean, I can marry both. I can use my voice. People will listen to me. I will be there assisting them, giving them and passing on the information. But yet I will be there translating someone else and someone else's, perception, view, or whatever. And then I understood during this time that it's not enough.
It's just your voice.
It's just your voice. And basically, you cannot just hide somewhere behind someone and pretend not to be there and, not having anything to say, basically. So then I changed the course and I decided that I strictly wanted to appear and to have a say.
I like the sound of that. Also about the translation, we'll be talking about this because it's a simultaneous translation that you did. Crazy to me. I mean, you have to be alert at all times, attentive, which we'll be getting into. Partnerem podcastu jest Tutlo, szkoła angielskiego online, która tak jak ja pomaga przełamywać bariery w mówieniu. So this passion to shape the way people see the world, I've also had it ever since I was a little boy. I remember being 10 years old, I would host Mam Talent show in my primary school.
There you go.
So it's always in us, I think. As a kids, we have this drive. I would say it's innate, meaning you are born with some set of characteristics that make you different. I think I can say it.
Absolutely.
And you know it. There's a gut feeling about it. I think that's what I can tell from my experience. So do you believe that each of us has been gifted with some certain talents that we need to find and develop throughout our lives? Would you agree with that?
Yes, this is it. I mean, my parents are actors. My dad is deceased, unfortunately, but they were actors all their life. And they were absolutely passionate about it. And this is something that we started.
Comes up again.
Yes, absolutely.
Sounds right.
My grandma would take care of us, me and my siblings, and she would say, Mama is busy, Mama is away, and she will be back. Now you are with me. And for her, it was sort of a natural thing, her career was above everything else. And my mom took it over from her mother. And she also instructed me all along the way that I should really be focused on my talents, on my job, on my work. This is the most important thing in your life. Kids, of course, family, of course, but this comes natural, it goes without saying. What is really important in your life is your career, you're building yourself. And I think this is really, truly important. You have to discover what drives you. Because if you don't, then you will be a worker. You will be somebody who will have to go to work and spend some time in an environment that
That's maybe
suits
not
you
suitable
more
for
and
you.
less, right? Gives you money, rewards you with financial remuneration, and then you spend it in the way you want, but you're not passionate. You're not, happy with the way you're spending your life, because at some point, this job becomes your life, and you need to be happy. And you are the only responsible for this happiness. So you need to find the thing that defines you.
And it's also, again, learning curve, trial and error things.
Yes, because sometimes you fail, sometimes you're wrong, and sometimes you get to a point that you know that you don't want it. And then you need to change. But this life isn't about it, right?
What does it take to be a good journalist? And I want you to give this piece of advice because I want to listen to it. I'm curious to know what makes a good journalist.
Well, one thing we already know. We established that. This is passion, right?
Right.
You need to be driven. You need to want to understand. And in order to understand well, you need to ask yourself pertinent questions. So the most important questions. And to do that, you need to learn. You need to, you need to read, you need to stay alert, as you said, you need to have your mind all around and, just look at everything you possibly can. It's like, informational ADHD. You need to be really put and always there. So you basically don't have other life because this journalism becomes your life. This quest for knowledge, for information, for answers becomes your life. And you're just, preparing a meal in the kitchen and you're thinking about something that a politician has just said and what it might, what might be the result of his way of thinking, right? And what can happen next. So it's a process.
You need to be up to date with everything and be alert.
Yes, so this is the second thing. Third, we talked about it earlier, the objectivity, the lack of bias. But it's a very difficult concept nowadays.
Yes.
I don't know how to define
we'll be
it.
getting into that later on.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
But I think it's interesting to be at least curious how other part of the conflict might think and what they might what their interest could be, because this is important, especially when you talk about domestic issues. There comes some things like not that much as common sense, but sort of a patriotic involvement, and you're being you become at some point. You have to decide what's best, right? And when in deciding what's best, and we're talking about values, then plenty of other aspect comes in the room. So yeah.
You mentioned 3 things. I'm gonna add one more. It's listening. I think it's crucial. It's key, and also reacting to what other people say. Reacting and then, reacting yourself to that, right? So listening to their words, looking at their body language.
Absolutely.
I think everything comes into play. That's what I think is also
this is a different thing, This is kind of because the journalist that we're talking here. Yeah. This is different. This is great also. I mean, you have time, first of all. You're not limited by 10 minutes interview.
That is true.
Second, you touch upon different issues and you get to a human person, right? You're curious of the other person.
But you also need to feel the room, meaning like sometimes you can see that it's a route that the person doesn't want to go. So you need to change the narrative, change the script.
Yes.
And it's a learning curve for me as well. But I'm passionate about it. So I think the passion is really
Well, I'm
really
keeping my
important.
fingers crossed. I think that you're doing great,
Thank you.
Diamant. So really...
Thank you for these kind words.
Good way in achieving what you want.
Dziennikarze to dziwni ludzie, którzy na chwilę tylko wracają do domu, gdzie przypominają sobie o życiu, a po przekroczeniu progu studia z powrotem zanurzają się w newsach i w komentarzach. It's something you brought up when you're cooking your meal.
Yes.
And you're in your mind, you're somewhere else. You have to be engaged at all times. Is there a moment when you can switch off your brain and just be you, or does this job always stay with you?
That's an interesting question. I'm trying to think about, because when I'm leaving the house, I'm immediately switching, I'm leaving all the domestic or family problems behind me. I must say that I'm lucky, because my situation is very stable. I have 3 grown-ups who can take care of themselves already, first thing. Second, I have a husband who also shares the deal of burden of responsibility. And whenever I feel the need to focus on something, he takes on, and vice versa. We switch. So this is great. Plus, we have grandmothers who also come to rescue. So this is great. But apart from family and other things, I think I'm a journalist all the time. And I like to be. I like it this way. I meet with our friends and we talk politics. I call my brother, we talk politics. My mother is calling and we immediately
You're constantly immersed in this world.
Yes, this is it, which is good, which is, I think, important to me, because this is the way I am. This is the kind of person I am. That's why it was quite difficult for me to get immersed in this world of, morning show, because that was totally different. It was something else. And I'm not denying that it was an important part of my career and my life, because it gave me enormously. And it was, the moment and the place which basically gave me the all attention and, media popularity and all this. But it was different. I didn't connect with that, It was not like I came home and I wanted to talk about it. It was sometimes, but no. I mean, I focused immediately on some other issues. Here, it's not the case.
It's not the case here. We can also see that. I can see that from my eyes, that this passion is there, and it's a beauty. This is the beauty of all of this. They say a good journalist should remain objective, and you already touched upon that. I don't believe it's totally true. As humans, we always impose a certain narrative, and whether it's conscious or not, right? Like sometimes it's unconscious. But I also believe that TV is different from having, like, for example, my own program. If you watch my episodes, there's a certain narrative, and you can tell. I always respect the guests and other viewpoints, but I also have my things to say. Obviously. Do you think it's bad? Should journalists stay silent and just listen?
It depends on the context, and it depends on the program, on the idea of the program. Because look at my program right now, for instance. Face to Face is a show where we discuss, right? And we are the two, both sides of the table are journalists. And so we are not objective. We take sides, and maybe I am more objective because I am asking questions, but still I have my own thinking behind. Or sometimes I'm just clarifying the context, which is also biased, by the way. This is it, right? Even by taking the area where we are having this program, Central Eastern Europe, this is biased already, by definition, geographically and geopolitically. So there's no room for objectivity. And then, we should try somehow, as I said. We really should try, because there lies, I think, a common ground. We cannot afford to lose it. Because when you just go to different sides, boom, there's nothing left to fight for.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to
find a common ground,
I don't know, sense of rationality. I don't know how to define it, but something that is dear to all of us.
Yeah. And also respect other views.
And
right?
respect other views. Exactly. So, objectivity, as I said, it's a very difficult concept nowadays. And I don't know if we will stay with this concept, but I would certainly like to have it somehow. And I really admire those few journalists who still cling to this concept of objectivity, or try, because some, argue that They're never objective. They're always acting with a hidden agenda. I don't know. I think that they are trying to preserve it.
Takes effort.
Yes.
Right? A lot of effort.
Absolutely.
But I also think that, well, after all, we're all human beings. So we have our viewpoints, right? And the viewer needs to also identify with us in a way. And well, just at least a little bit, right? Like it's someone they see on the screen of their TV or phone. So they need to know who's speaking. They need to know a bit of a persona. So it's just this. I think there's a fine line between presenting your viewpoints and staying professional at what you do, because I think we can put the equation mark. Can I say that? Equation? Yeah.
Yeah, equation mark.
Yeah. Professionalism, objectivity. Would you
Yes.
agree with that?
Well, I would certainly agree with reporters being objective. For instance, going on site,
Yeah, it
say
depends on the
Serbia,
context,
wherever, right? And you have a reporter who's trying to make the best of the situation and passes on the information. He or her or she has to be as objective as she can. She cannot translate everything into political context and put everything with it. She has to certainly give the context and say about the situation that might have led to protests, for instance, but she has to still pass the information as it is. How many people came? What is happening? How the police is behaving? Are the protesters peaceful or not? The objectivity lies in the truth. So he or she has to stay as close as possible to the truth.
Yeah.
And in this way, the reporter has the easiest thing to do, right? Their task is just to truthfully pass on the information. Now, what's going to happen in the studio with this information, that's another story, right? And as you said, I mean, professionalism wants it to not to impose any viewpoints on your guest. But then again, if you have a guest who is totally biased, you cannot just
be unbiased.
Be unbiased, and sometimes you need to counteract. So you'd be the devil's advocate for that matter. So it's not easy. You need to. There's no definition. No. I think absolutely, as you say, it equates. Professionalism equates objectivity, but it's not the only equation that is true. You can have others as well.
It's not mathematics at the end of the day, right?
Engaged journalist equates professional journalist also, right? Yeah. Engaged in terms that he or she is passionate and well-prepared, well-read, I don't know, with all the information in her hand and at hand as well, used. I would say that too, yeah.
You have quite a diverse background when it comes to education, which we'll be getting into, but I see a lot of similarities, connections with journalism, because it's the skills you gain in the other aspects of life and fields that now make up the whole part. So my question to you is, do you think this approach to journalism, that you don't have to limit yourself just to one role, helps or it doesn't help? I mean, Absolutely. It's a rhetorical question.
Yeah,
obviously
it
helps.
Help,
but how does it affect the stories that are being told?
There's a school of journalism saying that you cannot simply become a journalist by learning how to become a journalist. You need to have certain background. So like a movie director. First, he or she, you go and you choose. You perhaps go and study psychology or philosophy or, I don't know, arts, whatever. Or you become an actor and then you switch positions, right? So you just add something because this background and your experience is really valuable. Not only in shaping your the way you are after that, how you are. What I mean, not only in the way that you perform the journalism, right? Based on your previous experience, but it also gives you knowledge,
You become a well-rounded person.
Exactly.
And
So
that's
you need
needed
that.
for that job.
You definitely need that.
And journalism is not the only prerequisite. I mean, graduating from this degree, having this degree is not the prerequisite of being a good journalist.
There are many journalists who are not journalists by formation,
Yeah.
right, by education. So it doesn't really, it's not a necessary step. However, I would argue that there is a necessary first step, meaning that you need to be, you need to have a certain background, some sort of a first degree gained somewhere else, not only in journalism. So in my case, it was linguistics. However, it was really, I would say...
but it's an interesting story because you did that studies, but you didn't have in mind, you didn't want to become a teacher.
No.
It was just the base for you to do other things.
To me, the most important and the most interesting thing in this way, in these studies, was paradoxically the theory. The theory seemed to me very interesting.
Of linguistics?
Yes. Theory of communication, history of linguistics, the way people discovered how language plays an important role and how shapes the thought, for instance. So
you also studied
philosophical.
You also studied at the College of Europe
Yes.
and University of Boston. So I want to now touch upon that.
Exactly.
What did it teach you? How did it affect your job now?
Enormously. I must say that it's only now that I discover how much of what I am using today was taught to me in College of Europe. I actually visited my mother the other day, and it was before Christmas, and she was making, she was looking through some stuff that I left at her house, and she came across these piles of classeurs, plenty of notes and different different things like that, and some photocopies of different books. And it was amazing how much of it really applies to my job today. All these policies of European Union, the history of integration, whatever. I mean, plenty of this is really made up the pillar of politics nowadays and of modern European politics. So yes, it's absolutely great. Plus, for me at that time, it was the first, meeting with people from different areas, from different countries, from different ways of thinking. Also,
you became open-minded.
I became open, and I became more of a person who, when you are a Pole and you study in Poland, and you also know Polish history, you never think about how do the German students perceive your country. So when I first met my German friends in the College of Europe, for me it was a really discovery. How do they think, and how are they looking at me and the modern generation? So this was something very, very important. Also to my sensibility and sensitivity of people who are trying to work in a multinational environment.
This melting pot, right? When
Yes.
you're in it, you see things differently. You start seeing things differently. Another thing we have in common is Brussels. Bruxelles. How did you find the city? How did you find the traineeship? Because you did the traineeship at the
Yes.
European Commission, so did I. Was it the Blue Book traineeship or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I did mine also, but I did mine in administration. You did yours in translation,
No.
correct? Then
No.
press and communication department.
Yes, press and
Voilà.
communication. That was also funny. I really wanted to get to Brussels. Why? Well, because I was in love with my boyfriend, who was Greek.
So there's a
And
love story.
Absolutely. But not only, of course, there were other issues. I was also definitely I wanted to make a stage in the European Commission, but then it was a matter of life and death to get to Brussels. So yes, I managed to do it. And to my amazement, I was really admitted to DG Press and Communication, which was the best I could get, basically. And that was great. I attended daily press briefings in the European Commission in the Berlaymont building, where all the spokesperson of different commissioners would appear, and they would take questions from different journalists. And that was great because I got to meet Polish journalists, a very funny group, very consistent group, very, they were friends basically already. And that was a very special moment because Poland was still an applicant country, waiting for the referendum. So we were in the process of reaching all the goals on our way to become a member state. So there were the negotiations within different packages, and it was very complicated. But I loved it, and it was the first time when my eyes literally lit. I was looking at all the process, and on those spokesperson who had to be so, filled with data, and they had to have answers to all those questions coming, which was fascinating. And it was there when I met Matthew Kamiński, who is ex-editor-in-chief of Politico. And Matthew was the one who introduced me to Tomasz Lis in Poland, and he was the one who told me also about the emerging TVN24 news channel.
So you could say this was the beginning
absolutely.
Of your career. So perhaps you could recommend people to try it out. Because I tell you from my experience, I didn't have that of an experience. I also I told you before, health digital executive agency because I was interested in public health. Not my thing. But again, I discovered what I don't like, and now I know which path not to take. So I think for the viewers watching us, definitely go try it out.
You should.
Because it's a nice opportunity. It's just 5 months of your time.
5. Well, we had 9.
6.
I remember
for me, it was 6
it was
or 5.
9. But it was great. And the only disappointment was for me not to be able to stay in Brussels then. Because I really wanted to stay, to pursue my career. And I think for the better that I didn't, right? I would become probably a clerk, commission clerk, or whatever.
Yeah. For me, that was the thing that that was a natural path for me to do if I'd stayed. And I just decided not to do it. But again, just try it out. Try it out and see if it's your thing.
Yeah. It's also a marvelous place to
But don't you think
discover.
it's sort of a bubble in a way?
It is.
Right? Like you're immersed in a bubble.
I have a dual experience of Brussels because I was there as a young child. My parents managed somehow, it was deep era of communism, but they somehow managed to send me to their sister of my father, so my aunt, who lived in Huilart, near Brussels. And so I spent there some time. And I would come back for holidays. So I knew Huilart and a different side of Brussels from more of a Polonia perspective. So Poles living in Brussels and their friends. It was a very nice neighborhood of Huilart, but also a very nice diaspora of intelligentsia from the 60s. People who would come and set up their own businesses or worked as sport coaches or architects, art painters. So that was really nice. And I first got to know this sort of Brussels, and then I came back.
So 2 dual experience, as you said.
And then I discovered this bubble, as you say. And it is a bubble indeed. But at the same time, it's fantastic. You get to meet all those people from different countries.
This is amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And they all sort of work for this common goal, for this community, still having in mind the interest of their own countries. So this is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Look, since November 2024, you've been working at TVP as the host of the World News Tonight and Face to Face, as you said before. But we can see the transition, and I had to touch upon that. I mean, people asked you this question before, but we need to touch upon that you started as a news anchor, then you moved to showbiz, again, news anchor. These 2 worlds, are they separate for you, or do you find some similarities between them?
I would say they are separate because they're completely different.
That's the answer I was expecting.
Yes. Yeah. there are similarities in terms of appearing on the screen and being maybe allowed to be more natural in the morning show. What is interesting, in the morning show, you don't have, what do you call?
Prompt?
The prompt, right? So you need to be really, how to say, you just cannot rely on a written word, but you need to have everything in your mind. And also you're always working in pair. So this is something additional that changes your perspective and changes your way of your work. Here, you have your prompt, but it doesn't guarantee anything because you need to be there for your guest, and the guest may surprise you, and you need to be also very alert. But it's a different world. It's a different story. You don't have to act. You don't have to smile. You just need to be really centered on what you hear and what you want to hear. So, completely different.
Completely different worlds.
Completely different.
Jumping from one world to the other. This is a translation, rough translation, right? Wskakując z jednego świata do drugiego. These are your words also. But this is a way of getting to know what you like and what you don't like and what you're good at, right? Like this is something that we can tell the people. Just try it out. If this is not your thing, come back to what you like or discover something new. How else are you supposed to find that out?
Absolutely. I mean, this profession is marvelous for many, many reasons. But one of it is that you can be and evolve in so many different directions. It's not only being a radio journalist or TV journalist. Apart from the camera and the microphone, you have so much possibilities that you can explore. You can you can find your small sphere, your small area where you want to grow. So some become nutritionist experts, for instance, right? Or, I don't know, health experts as journalists, because they want to center on that. And others go for international politics or on European Union. They want to be centered here. And then you really gather so much information and you get to know so many people that then you can really moderate certain discussions. You can also pass this information to youngsters. Like for 1 year, I devoted my time for pupils of one of the high school in Warsaw, which was a great experience as well. So you can really find your ways. And as you say, you can try this, and just understand what is for you or not for you, simply.
During this transition after that, you said you knew you were going to make it. You knew you were going to make it, but you had to, and here is a quote, musiałam wymyśleć siebie na nowo i określić swoje mocne strony. So what are Anna KALCZYSKA's strengths? What are your fortes? Have you discovered them? This is a question.
Yes. Well, it is definitely my strength to be an easygoing person and a person who is still very curious. This is something that is in me. This passion and this light that is inside of me is something that nobody can take out of me.
The curiosity, right?
The curiosity
about the world and
curiosity and passion to go after this curious thing and the curious thought in my head. So this is one thing, and I think that with this I might very well adapt to different places. It's not only television or not only public appearances, but also, I don't know, public affairs also.
Just being versatile.
Yes.
Your experience, your skills, what you gain, it teaches you that.
Definitely. So sometimes people wonder, for instance, my kids ask me this question, okay, so what should I do? Oh my God, I'm not good in anything. This will come. You will discover your strength and your good points. But, there's also AI, which really comes in and comes in the picture. And then you realize that your personality is something that is unique and that no one, not a single artificial intelligence is going to
take that
imitate
away.
it or take it away. And I think this is important. And if I was to give anybody an advice, it would be this, work on your personality, on your very
individuality,
individual
uniqueness.
way of saying things, of pronouncing things, of intonation, and on appearing, on mimic, on things like that. I don't want to say that this are my strength, but this is definitely something that is my own, and I own it, and I think in somehow I'm okay with that. I'm satisfied with the way I can read news. This is my strength, definitely. I know where to put the accent in perspective.
Partnerem podcastu jest Tutlo, szkoła angielskiego online, która tak jak ja pomaga przełamywać bariery w mówieniu.
Going back to passions, this is what we started with. We also share passion for global issues. That's probably also the reason why we ended up in Brussels, apart from love story going on. But still, there is this passion for foreign affairs, for strengthening Poland's position in the world. And you wrote your thesis about the image of Poland in EU countries just before we entered, I think, EU.
Yes.
I also wrote mine thesis on something else, which also is related to politics, which now I want to get into. I wrote my thesis about media polarization.
My goodness.
And let's keep in mind that I wrote it in 2022 about the issues happening in 2020, which I think we can all remember correctly. And my the title of my thesis was "What Power Resides in Media: The Case of Abortion Discourse of 2020 in Poland." And I was essentially comparing two major stations. I don't think I need to mention which ones. Specifically focusing on news evening broadcasts, right? So two different narratives taking place. And I was focusing on rhetorics, on connotation of words, on using protagonists, antagonists, and like the ratio of that.
That was a heavy thing.
Yes, heavy thing. But again, I want to stretch out that this is sort of the past also, that we've been seeing it, but also we've been bombarded with this. And for my framework, I used Foucault. Foucault, I think that's how you pronounce his name. It's a French theorist, and he introduced theory of power.
Okay, Foucault.
And he introduced the theory of power.
Yes.
So to give people a bit of a insight into it, basically is that there is an institution, let's say a government, and it has a certain ideology. And then we have the production of knowledge because of that institution. And then we have media that takes this narrative, and over time, there is a dominant discourse that we see in media. It's a natural thing. Basically, Foucault, if I pronounce it correctly, he argues that politics and mass media go together, that politics doesn't exist without mass media. And it shows that over time, institutions reproduce their positions.
Yes.
Basically, the status quo maintains, right? So what I'm trying to say with all of this, because I don't want to get too much philosophical, but the power in media is huge. It's huge. It's tremendous. We don't even realize how big of an impact it has on individuals. Would you agree with that? How do you think the media influences the way we perceive the world?
Wow.
It links with objectivity, of course, but I think it's important to discuss it. And also keeping in mind, again, that what I was saying is linked with 2020, in that case, abortion discourse, which was definitely linked to political party. I don't want to get too much political, but we could see different narratives. So what power resides in media?
Well, my goodness, that's a very, very difficult question, I would say, because I was going to say that the media lose their power over time. And what we are seeing and observing is that, the classical mainstream media, such as televisions, different televisions, but media stations, TV stations, are less and less watched, and people are looking for a different narrative, and they are being under influence of so many, other actors. And I am specifically thinking about social media, that I wouldn't say that the television will prevail over social media over time.
We can see this change also, right?
Yes.
But then social media have this power.
Yes,
to
they do.
influence people.
Absolutely, they do. And it's a tremendous power and not regulated. I don't see, for the time being, any institution able to overview social media. And this is actually being processed and being discussed in the European Union as well, especially after what has happened in Romania, what could happen in Poland, what is happening and has happened ahead of Brexit in Great Britain, etc., etc. So social media are extremely influential, but also influenced.
That's it, right? So many stakeholders at the same time.
Exactly. So, I definitely am in favor of regulating this sphere, definitely. Now, how to do it without harming the power of, of democracy, of free speech, without really imposing any controversial, instruments of such as the censorship. I don't know that if anybody has the solution for today, but it is urgent that we really work on it, because it's more invisible everywhere.
It's problematic, you see, because for me, the way I see it, it's sort of a vicious circle, meaning we strive for, it's a paradox that we strive for division rather than unity many times.
Yes.
We see this polarized viewpoints, and then there's a battlefield of two camps battling with each other. I mean, the US is a perfect example.
Good news is no news. First of all, first rule. Good news
What do you mean
is
by that?
That the good news doesn't sell. You need to have conflict. You need to have a negative information. Controversy that brings attention. And this is the way it works. I mean, I remember having a problem over time with working as a journalist in TVN24, because over time I realized that we are basically talking only about car accidents and death of young children bitten by their irresponsible relatives, or and that was tragedy after tragedy. And you realize that there are so many different, more important issues that you would like to talk about, but the audience is audience, and people are really focused on things that grasp their attention and things that are easy to understand.
We like to make life easier for us and just label certain events or something, right?
And people are lazy. They don't want to dig into a specific problem.
Why would they? I mean,
listen to a first person that they might find reasonable enough, and who
they don't double check.
And
that person is right.
They
or
like
not.
their viewpoint on one thing, for instance, and they extrapolate on others. They don't ask questions.
It's the confirmation bias, right?
Yes.
That you prefer the positive information, something that you're comfortable with. Yeah. It's an interesting analogy, and I mean, this probably would open another whole discussion, and I run up with questions. But you see, like, what I'm trying to say is that it's really interesting for me how it doesn't stop. Definitely. And I would like to be optimistic about it, but it's difficult for me.
I know, Damian. Same goes for me, to be honest. But I still believe in a discussion potential, and in the fact that people need to talk to each other. And as long as they want to talk, as long as they want to listen, there's a room for a potential, somehow reaching to a conclusion, to a common conclusion, hopefully.
I want to end on a positive note.
Go ahead.
Here's a quote. Well, I don't know. It's going to be positive, I think. Here's a quote of yours that I found really interesting, and I want you to elaborate on that. You said, jestem dość poważną osobą, co przeszkadza mi w niektórych sytuacjach. What do I mean by that?
Oh my God, I need to get the context, I guess.
It was one of the interviews, I think, with Andrzej
Sołtysik.
could be or not. But are you a serious person, we could say?
I would say quite the contrary, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. I'm not that, that serious at all. Sometimes I am many things. I am a sensitive person. I am a nostalgic person. So definitely, but I very much like to laugh. And I can say that I have healed myself all by myself from all the troubles that I was going through in my life, which were directly linked to lack of work. And when I was in a period of being low. And I think that it was really my only, I can only attribute this to myself, that I somehow made it to the level where I am today. And this, I think, is because I am an optimist and I want to be positive, definitely,
I like the sound of that.
So I don't know if that helps to anyone, but...
No, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, this is it. This is how it worked. It worked for me. It worked because I really knew what I wanted. I wanted to be active and I wanted to work, and that was my goal.
We're going to be wrapping up. At the end, I always ask for a piece of advice. And I think we heard some of the advices, but if you want to share some wisdom with people watching us or something that they should, I don't know, just that you find interesting, then the floor.
I like this concept of passion that we started with.
Right? It's just, really, it fits, right?
Because it's great. And I'm looking at some people who are still looking for their way, or because I am observing young people, since I am surrounded by them. And I just know one thing, that it will come. Don't you worry. You will find your way by just being with yourself, as truly to yourself as possible. And by discovering, making mistakes and coming back and trying some different things, as you just mentioned.
And give time some time, right? Don't hustle so much.
Exactly. Don't hustle. Life is ahead of you. And and life is full of possibilities. Even if you think that it's not that much packed with opportunities, you will find them and they will find you. So if that can be an optimistic ending.
On that note, we're going to be wrapping. Thank you so much for coming here. Bardzo było miło.
Thank you so much, Damian.